Good evening.
Hello.
Here we are at 5 of Mindful Aging. Welcome, and welcome to those who are watching out there. I'm glad that we can do it this way. Thanks again, Rebecca and the library, for this wonderful space and for broadcasting this. We'll begin with sitting meditation. Just sitting and noticing our body. Noticing what it feels like to sit firmly planted in the chair, on the floor, noticing the sounds around us. Letting go of what was happening before we came here, and just noticing this moment right now, just sitting. Bring attention, as we like to do, to our anchor, the sensation of breathing. Notice what it feels like to breathe in. The belly is a wonderful place to feel the breath. When you breathe in, you notice the belly expand. It takes a little effort to breathe in, although we don't have to be conscious of making an effort. The body does it by itself. And then breathing out is just a relaxation, letting the belly fall back in. Maybe saying softly to ourselves, rising, falling. Notice the mood we're in as we relax into just noticing the breath. Just sitting, noticing each in-breath and each out-breath. Notice the pause after the out-breath. Notice when the body is ready to take the next in-breath. Breath is our anchor, our home base. From this safe place, we notice all other things that are going on. Sounds, thoughts, other sensations. Notice as they come and go and come back to the next breath. No need to hold tightly onto the breath. It's just a base, just an anchor to hold us and help keep us aware of each moment. Yeah. So here we are in week 5. Let's take a little time to look back on this past week, what we did here last week, and perhaps your practice over the past week. Any things that came up, anything you learned, or anything interesting. As you recall, last week we explored sources of inspiration. As we get older, we know that there are times when we lose energy, that we are in kind of a fog or kind of down, and we don't have energy even to meditate or to do the things that we're supposed to do. We just want to just sit and vegetate and watch TV or whatever. And these sources of inspiration, we know, give us that energy. They help lift us up. They open us up to a wider experience. So we particularly talked about the arts, theater, and music. And we did a little practice here where we listened to some Beethoven and did some drawing that came to our minds during that. And we talked about how nature gives us that openness and relaxation and that energy. And we walked outside at night and noticed some interesting things. So I'd like to hear about your experience with your meditation practice or what we did last week. We can kind of go around the room. If you have anything to share, if not, you can say pass. That's okay. Who would like to start?
I'm not shy. So you talked about nature, using that to, kind of inspire. And I wish I had said something last week about you had the four parts of nature that, like the sea or water.
Water.
And I think we're very fortunate to have Lake Michigan so close that we try to get over there at least once a month just to walk on the shore. Mountains, we don't really have any mountains in Wisconsin, but there's plenty of Kettle Moraine hills, and they can be kind of challenging. So I guess, if you haven't walked on the Ice Age Trail or in the State Forest, I highly recommend it. I forget, Air, was that the? Desert. So we like to drive out west on occasion, and I know not everybody can do that, but it really is kind of neat. Even our dog looks out the window because he's so amazed at how different it is from Wisconsin. And the forest, I just want to put a plug in for Ledgeview Nature Center. Jim Bray isn't here today, but he is the president of the Friends Group. And they've got beautiful trails, it's just, 5 minutes from town. So I'd highly recommend getting out to Ledgeview. The center is closed for the winter. They're doing some remodeling, but the trails are open year round. So, try to get out there if you can.
Well, I have something that, not exactly an inspiration, kind of an inspiration, but somehow I got on an email list. Tara Brock, maybe you know the name, and somehow she sends these emails to me, like I think they're once a week or something, maybe more, that I save up. But even on the day when they come, I think, oh, that's something I should, because she's got these nice little meditations in there, like 15, 20 minutes, different every time, and so that's kind of, that reminds me, at least once a week, something you could do if you're just sitting, you could do this meditation.
Thank you. Yes, Tara Brock, an excellent teacher.
I tried meditating a couple of times this week. The most I got out of it was sitting up by a campfire while my husband was raking leaves. And he asked me if I was going to help him. I said I was studying for class.
I'll go back to the pool where the water and stuff inspires me, but my husband was asking me about this class and he kind of looked at me like, and I told him, I said, look, his name is Larry, and I said, Larry, I said, when you go out in the woods, a lot of times he'll just go out in the woods, he'll take his bow along or his gun, but he doesn't care if he shoots anything or not, he's always in touch with nature. And I said, that's exactly what we're learning, just be more aware of what's going on in your world. And the thumb look kind of went away, but so I don't know if I inspired him or not, but he needed to know what I was doing, so I might have inspired him.
This nature thing, going out last week in class, I wasn't real impressed with it at first. I live on a farm, so I have all the nature I want. And so I didn't appreciate that. When it gets to be this time of day, I wanna go in the house because I've been outside all day. And so I have a little different approach to it, but it made me appreciate nature. I maybe take it more for granted because I'm in it all the time.
So we weren't here last week because we went to watch as I was telling some of you, our granddaughter in the musical in Chilton, the high school musical, and so we got lots of music and theater, which is very inspiring. It was just a hoot. It's a funny show, and she was fantastic, and we hooted and hollered for her. And it was very fun and inspiring. But nature, for me, I always draw a lot of comfort and solace in being out in nature. We have trails that go through our property that Chuck basically made with his tractor or us to walk on. And that's just one of our best times of the day is in the morning. We go out and walk with our dog, and it just gives you kind of the feeling of getting moving for the day. Whatever you're feeling when you go out there, if you're sad or worried or whatever, it sort of calms everything down a bit and puts it all in perspective, maybe. So we love to be outside.
So for me lately, meditating has been sort of just the opposite of getting things out of your head. It's like 1,000 things are coming into my head. And, just, find myself sitting there saying, oh, stop thinking about that, and then I just start thinking about something else right away, it's not the quieting time that I've expected.
That's good, that's right there, that's noticing what's going on, so that's mindfulness, even though it doesn't feel as peaceful as you'd like.
Yeah.
That's good.
Meditating in nature for me is being in my garden and being at Ledgeview. Those are the two places, and they're great places to meditate.
I agree. I love walking the trails I don't care if it's summer, winter. It's beautiful when the snow is hanging on the branches of the trees and you just take it all in. I was out raking and it was just so peaceful and quiet, and just listening to the rake cross the grass and get the leaves and the crunching of the leaves, and it was just very peaceful. I never noticed that until we talked about it last week, all the things outside.
I also like being outside, which I do a lot, but so this week I put 2 apps on my phone for meditation, and I made an effort to at least 10 or 15 minutes each day sit with them and listen to it, because I've never really meditated before. So it was very relaxing and interesting.
Good.
I like nature too. I think it's kind of interesting that we all came here for a reason, or, and yet we share so many of the same interests and the same likes. I think that's just interesting that almost everybody, I like nature, I like nature, I like nature. I too can be crabby, and we go out hiking, and within 5 minutes I'm not crabby anymore, I'm not down in the dumps, it just lifts you up, just to be out, and just listen, or, birds, the leaves falling, it's just so peaceful.
I have always been a 2 time a day, 20-minute meditator. And what I've found, I'm gonna go back the last 2 weeks. I was in Utah the last week in October, and what a beautiful, beautiful state. And I just so enjoyed taking all of that in. And then there was an election, and I just feel out of rhythm with everything, except when I'm meditating. And I've never had I want to meditate like a month for days and days and days, but honestly, I'll be meditating and it's like, no, not yet, I don't want to come out. Because it seems like as soon as I come out, I get a knot in my stomach, and so I would love to just stay in a meditative state. It's probably not realistic, but it's where I find a peace that passes all understanding, I'm gonna say. It just, and I'll pose a question, it's usually to God. I don't know if I get answers, but at least I posed a question. And yeah, it's just a remarkable, it's been my salvation for the last 2 weeks. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna agree with most everything others have said. Ledgeview Park is, if I don't have time to go like down to the Kettles, I go over to Glenbeulah usually, unless I'm hiking with a friend, then we've gone down to Madison and around, but it's quiet and peaceful, and yet it's uplifting and joyful. It's like everything. And I've been meditating much more than I expected. It's been so helpful that I'm a couple times a day for sure. Scoot to my chair. So thank you.
Fine. Very good, everyone. Very
Can I
good.
add one thing?
Yeah.
I have troubles too with thoughts coming in, And so I find that counting my breaths, you know, like from 1 to 10, start over again if need be. And just that, vocalization in your head really helps to, you know, get rid of those extraneous thoughts.
Can I comment on breathing too? You'll recognize this as a yoga thing, Michael. But I really find that as I do a couple of neck rolls and I do some breathing and say a couple of affirmations, and then when I begin my meditation, I'll do my inhale and I'll do my exhale, and that pause is where I find the quiet and the peace and the tranquility. And the longer I can stay paused, and I take another breath, and then I get so, it's just all about the breath. And as Michael knows, when I first started meditating, I'd been a mantra user, and I had a terrible time. I'd say, Michael, I start out breath and then I'm doing my mantra. And I've gotten so the breath has become much more, the serenity from that empty breath. I highly recommend.
When I, feel like, oh, that was really useless meditating, I like to remind myself, that's why they call it meditation practice. You're not perfect.
Right, yeah.
Do any of you, when you meditate and you breathe in, when I breathe in, I can feel and hear my heart beating. When I exhale, it goes away.
Okay.
It stops. I'm thinking, whoa.
Maybe you need to see a cardiologist.
Maybe.
I went to one today.
Well, this week, I'd like to explore something a little different with all of you. Not something uplifting, but something bringing us back down to earth. Death. So often meditation is a way of letting us get away from all the clamor and busyness of the world to a place of peace. But it also can be from this base, this safe place where we've established this base of our breath and this peaceful place, we can explore uncomfortable things in our lives from a safe place. So that's a big part of the practice, is allowing painful feelings to come and kind of getting used to them, kind of exploring it, noticing what it feels like, particularly what it feels like in the body. And we notice if we can do this, we kind of edge into it, don't dive right into the worst thing you've ever been through, but edge into it. We notice that we learn about our experience, we grow, and the painful feelings tend to settle down. So, one of the painful feelings that we all experience is grief. And Jim and I explored this book last year a lot, Unattended Sorrow by Stephen Levine. So Stephen Levine and his wife Andrea dedicated their life to working with people regarding death and grief. They had a center in New Mexico, I think, Santa Fe or someplace. And he has a number of books, but this is the one that I latched onto that is precious. So I do recommend it. It's on your list. And a lot of what we're going to explore tonight comes from this. So, talking about grief, friend suggested, when we talk about how, meditation can be a calm place to dive deeper into our troubling thoughts. She said, she quoted, one of the great teachers, this teacher said, "My mind is a dangerous neighborhood." So we notice that sometimes when we're meditating, oh boy, hear that coming out. And it's a natural feeling to want to avoid that. And lots of times in meditation we do. We say, oh, there's a thought, let it go. But sometimes it's valuable not to let it go, but to stay with it. And I've noticed grief a lot lately, partly because I've wanted to teach this class, but I've been to, how many of you are noticing you're going to more funerals? And makes you think about the person and perhaps about your own mortality, which I think is good. Now, and this is a practice. In fact, I have a really good friend I was talking with about this today, and he said, well, you know, I don't think about my death. I want to try to do everything I can to stay healthy and keep living a long time, and when my death comes, let it come. Which is reasonable, and I didn't try to convince him, but I think it's worthwhile to explore these feelings. So grief, when we lose someone or something, there's so many things we lose in life, and we'll explore that for a minute. Takes different forms. So there's acute grief that happens when we experience a sudden loss, or maybe it's not sudden, but a bad loss, and it tends to change us. It slams shut the heart, Stephen Levine says, and it exposes so many different emotions. There's, you know, and so books have been written about the stages of grief and all the different kinds of emotions that we go through. There's helplessness, there's loneliness, confusion, fear. Very often we lose our appetite, we lose weight, we can't sleep. Denial, we just don't want to think about it. There's so many things we go through when we lose things in our life. Then there's chronic grief. That, you know, after we're through the worst part, there's still this emptiness, isn't there? And it can be from these very bad losses, our spouse or our sibling or a pet, a dear pet. But then there's just ordinary grief. You know, we're losing things all the time. Our unfulfilled ambitions and things, we look back at our life and we think we missed certain opportunities, all those sorts of little losses that happen along the way, and they kind of build inside of us. They're there. And so this meditation practice can be helpful in addressing those. And in a minute we'll do a little practice on it, but for right now I'd like to explore this. You remember the first week we wrote a word in the middle of the paper and then we expanded out that? Let's try that again. So you need your pen and paper. anybody need a pen or paper?
I could use it.
I've got more of them.
Okay, for now, yeah.
So in the middle of the paper, I would like you to write the word loss, L-O-S-S. And then you may wanna draw a circle around it and put some spokes out from that center circle. 4, 6, 8, see how many spokes you need. And at the end of a spoke, write down something you have lost. And just reflect on this. What losses have I had in the past month, in the past year, in the past several years, or as long as you want to go back? What comes up as you just think about losses? And if nothing comes up, just sit, just breathe, and come back to that word loss. What have I lost? And see if something comes up. People, places, experiences, hopes and dreams. Objects. What have I lost? And when you're ready, reflect on those individual losses and think about how that made you feel. How do you feel about that particular loss? There's so many different kinds of feelings that come up when we lose things, people. Some of these feelings, as you explore it, may surprise you. Write that down. you wanna just stay with one or two of those losses, or you may wanna do a lot of them, or maybe you just have a feeling in general, what it has felt like to lose people, things, experiences. Then as you complete that, I want you to look back at what you wrote down and think of anything that surprised you that you wrote down, anything that jumps out at you that, oh yeah. And if you feel like sharing, please do.
One thing that surprised me was, when I lost my profession, I used to work as an engineer here in Chilton for, over 20 years. And, I never really thought it was a big loss. I mean, I didn't really enjoy working there at the end. But, I still have dreams about being at work. I mean, it's kind of strange, but I guess it still kind of weighs on me that, I do not have that profession anymore. Okay.
One thing that may be surprising is a sense of relief. After I lost my wife, I noticed, oh, I don't have to take care of her anymore. I am free. And sometimes you feel a little guilty about those feelings, but maybe part of what you go through, just recognizing, oh, that's one of the feelings.
I lost my parents 3 months apart. And I kept saying it was kind of like I got hit on the side here and then the other side. But I had a very dear friend who helped me reframe thinking that, and it was much like you said. She said, there's a freedom. You're no longer the kid. They're bossing you around. Be yourself. And I kind of looked at her like she was crazy, but eventually it felt comfortable.
I tend to look on what's good. I don't often focus on the loss or the what's not good or what's not perfect or. So I'm having a little trouble with this one.
Okay, yes.
I'm not really like a Pollyanna, like I'm not aware of sadness and, hunger in the world and that sort of thing, but it's more like, what can we do to help?
Yeah, this is a different practice.
One of the things, I put down my mobility. I've had surgeries and I can't do a lot of things I used to do and I get frustrated.
Yes.
And I know it's part of the aging process but it's frustrating that you can't do these things that you want to do anymore, that you enjoy, but you're kind of limited to it.
I recently lost my father, but I was there crying. I felt being guilty that I haven't cried yet. you know, if we're expecting what we're hoping for, you know, it's in a better place, and he's, you know, he's done suffering and done, you know, dealing with his issues, so. You know, if you look at that way, yeah, it's too early, but, you know, nothing we can do about that.
Thanks.
One of the losses that, I'm sorry, you did.
Yeah.
I don't wanna jump in
Go
too
ahead.
fast, I'm sorry. Was, you know, was very hard. My husband's lost. It was a sudden death. But I realized, especially since we're approaching the winter time, and I do a great escape. I get away from January and February. And that had originally had intended to be couple retirement getaway time. And I still do it. I mostly do it alone. But I realized that I'm disappointed, you know, that I don't have a person to do that with. And then I realized, it's kind of sad. I just feel deprived. It was something that was taken away from me.
I have lost a friendship. I have a friend that we were college friends, and we would tell each other everything, and now she's gotten really busy with grandkids, and she's not available. You know, you call and she doesn't answer the phone, or you'll get this short text, and it just has no meaning to it. I think the negative side of texting is people think they're staying in touch, but it's not the same. And I understand why she's where she's at, but I just feel like I kind of temporarily lost this friend. Another thing I wrote was respect. I'm not, as I age, I don't feel that I have the respect that I had when I was younger and more active in the community, and there isn't the feedback. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm still busy, but it's not in a worldly sense.
Thank you. So I have a little meditation practice I'd like you to try with me regarding grief and all these different kinds of losses that we've undergone. From Stephen Levine, he talks about we hold our grief hard in the belly. We store fear and disappointment, anger and guilt in our gut. Our belly has become fossilized with a long resistance to life and to loss. Naturally, in the process of girding for self-protection, our belly guards old wounds and steels for the battle. A shield develops across our abdomen, which mirrors the armoring over our heart. This is a normal process. We're trying to protect ourselves against these feelings that are too painful. But if we can, in a meditation practice, soften our belly, can let go of some of that painful loss. So if you will, please sit in your meditation posture. And just let your attention come into the sensations of the body. Just sitting here. Begin to bring your attention into the abdomen, feeling the belly rise and fall with each breath. And you begin to soften the abdominal muscles, letting go of whatever holding tightens your belly and maintains your suffering. Make room for the breath as it breathes itself in soft belly. Noticing how much grief there is in the form of resistance and an ache held deep in the belly. As we do this, we can let that armor that we've built around ourselves soften. And in doing this, we uncover the heart. Each exhalation lets out the pain. There is room for our pain in soft belly. The spaciousness in the belly mirrors the opening of the heart. When you open your eyes, maintaining this increased awareness, notice at what point the belly tightens once again. You notice the loss reasserting itself and you need to protect yourself against further pain. Soften with the eyes wide open to the world, softening to the pain we all share, and the legacy of healing exposed in our deepening softness. When we soften to that grief, we find that even when we feel hopeless, we are not helpless. We'll take about a 5-minute break and gather again here around 7 o'clock.
I'm embarrassed.
Apps were helpful.
Well,
Was there one gal?
Yes, I
took that, yeah, I did that, I put, but I haven't really. Yeah, well, I wanna do like that. I haven't really this one that helps me a lot more.
Gracie made this quilt for a woman who lost her husband a year ago, a young woman in her early fifties.
Oh, that's it.
Go ahead.
Oh, my.
You
And she's on a farm, and so she's trying to run the farm now without her husband.
Oh, how cute. Oh, my goodness. All the work that went into that.
Oh. Oh, thank you. I'm not gonna be able to make it to the memorial, I'm gonna be out of town, so I'm so glad you could show that to me.
Wow.
Wow.
That's amazing. Amazing stuff. It's so amazing.
Who did you make this for?
It's all together.
It's for a woman who lost her husband a year ago. He was, really sick, and she's up there on a farm. And she's like in her early 50s, and she's trying to continue to farm without him. And she's got 3 daughters who have been helping her out, but
And I, yeah, I know one of the daughters.
and the whole community has just come together and supported them. And so one of the daughters asked her to make it for them, for her mom for Christmas. And they have beef cattle, so you can imagine the hours that went in.
And the other side with the spots too,
This
that's,
is the-
that's probably not the right word, spots, but,
Yeah.
Holstein, yeah.
Oh, that's
Either side's
Yeah.
Oh.
beautiful work.
Thank you.
That is beautiful.
How long did that take you to make? I mean, I know you probably don't keep track.
You don't keep track,
Better off that way.
but I would guess about 100 hours. You know, you work on a little bit, you put it away,
Very,
and all of a sudden your juices stop because they start looking alike, and so you put it away for a while, and then you get another idea.
it's very moving.
yeah, moving is good. So in terms of like months, how long did it
I started it after Christmas, and then, like I said, you work on it a while, and, you know, you pick up the fabrics, and then you go digging for some more, and I started with a small pile on my table. And by the time I was done, my table was full, because, oh, I got this, oh, this will look nice, so you go digging. Try and find that one piece of this one total, it's not there. So it's,
So it
it's
was
a work
fun,
in-
kind of too? It was fun?
Oh,
Or you
yeah.
do quilts a lot?
I do a lot of work
Yeah.
So she started that shortly after Christmas, but how many quilts did you make
in between.
over, in between?
4.
Our sister passed away in September, and she had started a quilt because her grandson was getting married. And she had all the squares cut out,
Oh,
and so Gracie took all the squares, and the grandson got married in September. And in fact, a few days after she had died. But anyways, Gracie took all the squares and finished the quilts for the wedding presents.
Wow.
She did that in between this. She's got like a mini Joanne fabric in her.
When you accumulate, you know, when COVID hit, I started making maps. All of a sudden, there's a bag of fabric on hanging on my door because we weren't home or whatever, you know. Or somebody called and says, oh, mom's attic, you know, she passed away, and it's like, I've got a small box, you know. It's like, oh, sure, I'll look at it, you know, and then my nephew, he says, oh, we were cleaning out my mother-in-law's house or something, and he says, I've got a few bags in the car. He didn't want to give it to his mother because she for it, and he knew he'd have to move it. It was 6 garbage bags.
Oh my gosh.
Most of it was stuff I couldn't use, but I could donate it to the quilt ladies because they crochet rugs and stuff out of screen fabrics.
Oh,
And so I could clean it and move it forward and,
Yeah.
but, you accumulate all these things because somebody knows your quilt.
You do all the piecing, you do all the quilting now,
Yes, I do everything.
Who did you learn that from?
I sewed as a kid in 4-H, and then I started quilting, as a hobby for my kids. But then I learned a lot from watching PBS, like Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy.
You know, and that way, and then you tie it, and then I didn't really get into it much until I was so retired. I went gangbusters
I
that way.
decided I must go. I didn't know if you had a mother or grandmother.
My mom sewed, and my sister did a lot of sewing, but, you just, once you get into it, you keep learning, and you learn from other people. So,
And teach other people.
and I teach other people. When you teach somebody else, you realize how many bad habits you have. You know, it's like cooking, you know, well, you know this recipe and you, right? You don't, you know? And so try and write a recipe down that you've been making for 25 years. It's like, you know, I don't know. You just know. So that's where I find a lot of peace of mind too.
I found this book, Reflections on the Silver River, very, very interesting. I think it was written for prison meditation,
Okay,
very much so.
oh, good.
That resonated for every single one of his couplets or whatever those.
And that was written hundreds of years ago.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
right. He even mentions prisoners in there.
Okay,
We're talking about.
I guess, yeah. It did get off quiet.
I thought too, when it first started, it was very long.
so now I'd like to, change our focus to something maybe even a little bit more challenging. To begin to think about our own death. I like to call this practice dying. Of course, one of the things that is wise for us to do early on is to put our affairs in order. To have our will updated, to appoint a financial power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, to write an advance directive indicating what care we would like in our last days and months. That's really worthwhile, so helpful for all of our people around us and for our own peace of mind, so that's important. And in the meantime, taking good care of our health. We hope to have as many good years as we have, but we know the end will come. So contemplating our own death, instead of trying to avoid that thought, may help us to prepare for that time. So as I mentioned, as we get older, we find we're attending more funerals. And I've been to a number in the past few months, and it does bring me to think about, well, how would I want my funeral to be? How would I want to be remembered? Or another experience that some of us have had is to be with a friend or a family member who is dying. Which is rewarding and challenging and painful. It's interesting that in my reading, I came across this, what they found. Now, advanced meditators have found this, but also hospice nurses can attest to this, and I've noticed this in dying, the people I've seen die, that death in those last days and hours tends to happen in certain stages, which is kind of interesting, I think. The stages are not necessarily in order, and you may skip stages, but these things tend to happen. So the first stage is the dying person feels very heavy. It's like the earth element, they might say. And the eyesight starts to get weak. The second stage is the dying person feels thirsty. Dry mouth, they feel very thirsty. And they have trouble retaining their fluids. And the hearing starts to go. So that's the water stage, the fluid stage. The third one is the dying person feels cold. And as many blankets as you put on them, they still are shivering. And the fourth stage is the breath starts to go. So you notice that the person has trouble breathing. Their out breaths get longer. And finally comes the last breath. They breathe out and don't breathe in again. So I think it's helpful to know that these are normal things that happen during the dying process. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the person is suffering. But I think, for myself, if I know that this is normal, I'm going to be able to accept that that's happening. So I was with a friend recently whose wife died, and we were at his funeral a couple weeks ago, and we went out for supper with him, and he was talking about how those last couple of days she kept gasping for air, and it was so hard. And I said, well, you know, that's all normal. So I don't think she was suffering. It's just part of what happens. So, you know, going through these things, we can be better friends to people who are going through the grieving process. So I think I mentioned earlier, I have a friend who's a meditator who says, well, I don't think about that stuff. And so in my research, I found out that they've studied this, that there is a man, Joe Nash, I think he wrote this for his PhD thesis. It appears in Positive Psychology in 2021, and he found 6 benefits of the practice of being mindful of death that I think are worth noting. And he has citations from his research for all of these. So one is a deeper appreciation of impermanence. We notice that nothing lasts forever, and this reduces the suffering of attachment and emotional reactivity to change. So as we notice, even those little losses that you had on your paper, this happens, and everything is impermanent, and we can begin to accept that. Number 2, an increased sense of gratitude for each moment of our precious life. I'm almost 75, and I think, well, how long do I have? I don't know, but I'm going to appreciate this time right now. 3, an enhanced appreciation of human vulnerability. That leads to greater compassion for ourselves and for others. Number 4, diminished anxiety about death. The death of our loved ones and dying in the world around us. This diminished anxiety helps us to support others during their dying process and friends and family who are grieving. Number 5, a reduced fear of our own death, which can help us die in a state of peace rather than agitation. And number 6 is from the Dalai Lama. All these above benefits combined lead to greater vitality and increased zest for life because of an enhanced ability to remain fully connected to the present moment. This is in your handout, so you can refer to that if you'd like. So I've got another guided meditation on dying, and I want to let you know that if this becomes too challenging for you, if it's very uncomfortable, feel free to check out mentally or to get up and leave if you need to. And if you feel comfortable, some of you may want to lie down for this. We can use all this space. There are some very comfy cushions back here. Pillows for your head. In back there are some black pads and yoga mats. Or if you feel comfortable sitting, but I encourage you, if you're comfortable, to find a place where you can lie down, anywhere in this room. On your back.
There, my friend.
But if I go to sleep, feel free to come over and nudge me.
Okay.
No, lock the doors at night.
Do you want a pillow for your head?
I have one out in my car.
That's right, I want you to go in the corpse pose.
But they don't know if he choked on a heart attack or a heart attack and he choked on his food.
So lying on your back, let your arms extend out to the side. Just let your body relax there, or if you're sitting in your normal meditation posture. This meditation takes about 10 minutes or so. Let your eyes close and bring your attention to the level of sensation. Feel this body you sit in or are lying in. Let the body be still. Focus on the sensation of being in a body. Notice the body's substantial quality. Feel the solidity of the body. Feel its weightiness, how gravity pulls on its substance. Receive this quality of solidity. Feel the weight of the head resting. Feel the muscles of your neck, its strength, its thickness. Feel the long bones of the shoulders and the thick bony sockets that support the weight of the arms. Feel the heaviness of the arms as they rest on either side of the body. Feel these heavy hands. Feel the torso, its thickness, its weightiness, the earthen quality of this body. Feel this heavy body in which you live. Notice the solidity, the density, the earth element of the dense body. The pull of gravity as you're drawn into the cushion. Notice gravity's action on this earthen body. In this solid body, sensations arise. Tingling, hot and cold, rough and smooth, soft and hard, sensations arising in the body. Recognize this flickering field of sensation. Don't grasp at sensation, just allow these sensations to be received as they arise in this body we inhabit. Open to the sensations in the legs, their density and heaviness. Feel the solidness of this body. Explore this container for the life force. And explore the life force as sensation arising and passing away. And as you note these sensations, notice how they arise in the heavy body. They seem to be received by something subtler within. Something lighter within this heavier form. Within this heavy body is a body of awareness. A light body which experiences hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, received through the outer body. Feel the body of awareness, this inner body, this light body, perfectly nestled within the heavier form. Receiving experience, experiencing. Sense the lighter body within, the body of awareness that experiences all that enters through the senses. It recognizes sound as hearing and delights in music. It experiences images as seeing and recognizes great beauty. It experiences food as taste. It knows it is alive. Enter this light body of awareness. Observe how each breath drawn in through the nostrils of the heavy body is experienced as sensation by the light body, by the awareness within. Notice how each breath connects the heavy body with the light body within. Each breath allowing life, awareness, to remain in the earthen vessel. Observe the light body receiving the heavy body. Feel this contact between the heavy body and the light body that each breath allows. Feel how each breath sustains the light body balanced perfectly within. Breathe the connection between the outer body and the inner body, drawn in as air, received as sensation. Each breath so precious. Each breath maintaining the connection, allowing life to remain in the body. Feel how the breath connects the solid body with the light body. Experience each breath. Just awareness and sensation. Each breath. Experience this delicate balance, moment to moment, as sensation, as awareness itself. And take each breath as though it were the last. Experience each inhalation as though it were never to be followed by another. Each breath, the last breath of incarnation. Let the breath come, let the breath go. last breath of life leaving the heavy body behind. Each breath ending. The connection severed between the heavy body and the light body. The end of a lifetime, the final breath. Each breath the last. Let go, don't hold on to it. Let each breath go, finally and forever. Don't even be attached to the next breath. As the last breath leaves, go with it. Don't hold on. Let yourself die. Let the light body float free now. Let yourself die. Let go now. Gently, gently, let it all go. Let it all float free. Let yourself die. Leave the body behind and follow the light into luminous space. Go into it. Let yourself die into space. Each breath vanishes, each thought dissolving into space. Don't hold now, just let it go once and for all. Let go of fear. Let go of longing. Open to the wonder. Let yourself die. Open into death. Nothing to hold to. That is all past. Die gently into this moment. Holding on to nothing, just let you die. Let go of your name. Let go of your face. Let go of your reputation. Float free into the vastness. Leave the body behind, moving into the vast space of being. Light dissolving into light, just vast luminous space. Let go now. Have mercy on you. Let yourself float free. Merging with space, space dissolving in space. Light dissolving in light. Vast, boundaryless space, expanding into space. Such enormous peace. Dissolving, dissolving. Edges melting. Vast, luminous space dissolving in space. Shimmering clouds dissolving at the edge. Clouds dissolving in space. Dissipating, dissolving, merging in space. Let go into that spaciousness. Hold nowhere. Let your heart merge in your own great fire, dissolving, radiating into space, merging with light, dissolving in luminous space. Let go into the light. In this vast luminosity is all that you have ever sought, dissolving into the great heart, floating free in vast space. Let go of your knowing. Let go of your not knowing. All that comes to mind is old. Any thought is just old thought, nothing to hold to. just the simple fact of dying and the fact of the clear light. Let your eyes gently open. Look around you. Here you are. We can stand if we like and come back to our places when you're ready.
I wasn't sure.
Alright, not a rolling one.
Not a rolling one.
My stomach growled, which kind of spoiled it. Kept me tethered to the heavy body.
Yeah.
So the letting go phase, is that when, times I've experienced where the person dying is waiting for someone to visit?
I was gonna ask about that.
Is that when they can finally let go after that favorite daughter or
Oh,
the
right.
child arrived?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
And then shortly after they die?
Mhm.
Or sometimes they wait till that person's left.
Yeah,
Because they don't wanna
that's
die in
happened
their
too.
presence. I think it's a very
Yeah.
personal, I work in a nursing home, so, you know, I've had a lot of grandparents and parents down.
But are we talking about a live person now or somebody that's already passed and they're waiting to be called by that loved one? I've experienced that with some friends of ours. They were waiting for, her husband passed away 10 years before, and she was waiting for him to call her home.
Uh-huh.
And my daughter said she was talking about this, and the first time she experienced it, she said, well, he told me I couldn't go yet. The
Uh-huh.
person that was dying said I couldn't go yet, it wasn't my time. But then 2 days later, she passed away because, you know,
And it was her husband that
it
said
was her husband that was calling
Not
her.
the spirit, yeah.
Right,
He was telling her what to do until the very end.
All,
who knows?
Isn't that true?
Yes, my husband said the other way around.
What else?
you have a very quiet voice. Once you got me light and floating, I think I fell asleep.
Uh-huh.
Because I don't remember much, I just remember light.
Or another thing you hear is, like the person that's dying, all of a sudden they sit up in their bed and they're talking, and then the next day, you wouldn't believe it was the same person.
Right, yes.
And so I don't know what phase that is in the dying process.
Yes, they've been going down and down, and then they have this rebound a little bit for the end, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen it several times, it's not,
When I was with my father when he died, and you know, that last expulsion of air,
Mhm.
and then a tear.
Uh-huh,
And I've heard other people say that there's a tear that
uh-huh.
comes down. It was just a very beautiful gift.
Yes.
Well, I was my dad's favorite, and yes, I earned it.
That was the naughty one.
But he was in a nursing home and he was dying for days. And I was there, and finally I couldn't take it anymore, and I decided to go and get my hair cut. You know, I was gone half hour, 45 minutes, and that's when he died.
It's waiting.
And I think the person, you look like you're sad because you missed that.
Well, I'm not, at the time I didn't understand it, you know, because I stayed overnight and you know, did all of that, and then it was the same with my mother. I wasn't there. We're on a farm, and I just went home to do a few things that I needed to get done, and that's when she died. It's like nobody wants me around when they're dying.
I've heard that story many times, and I just think that's their choice.
I understand that
You know, I know
now.
some people, us living, feel like we don't want them to die alone, but I do think there's people that wanna die alone. I just have seen it. I mean,
I can identify with that. This is a very personal experience. Why have this person bothering me while I'm driving?
I was reading about the use of psychedelics for the out-of-body experience, for people that are having a real traumatic time dying, that they would, you know, and it's just like in therapy stages now, but, you know, I could see where that could be beneficial just to, you know, let go.
One last trip.
In Pima's book, she goes through all these colors and the different lights. And I think, I don't know, that kind of resonates with me.
You hear about this common experience of looking at the bright light. People have had near-death experiences and talk about that.
Is that a medical thing though, where part of the brain is shutting down, or is that explain it as a physician?
I've read about it and I think they're studying it. I don't think they know yet. But they are, I did read that there's somebody who is hooking up electrodes and fMRIs to people who are dying to watch what's happening. So that's, no, perhaps. And in a way, it's nice to know what the brain is doing, but does it really matter to
Right.
And it can still be spiritual,
Oh, yeah.
you know, even though it's science, you know, it can still
Oh,
be
yeah.
spiritual.
As much as science goes, we'll never understand everything. Well, thanks for going through this with me. I found it helpful, and I have an assignment for you for next week if you would like.
You come back alive, right?
Please, if it's your time, go. But I'd like you to write some ideas for your own funeral. How you, you know, how you would want people to observe your death or to remember you. And perhaps then, if you feel like writing your own obituary, how you would like to be remembered, write down some thoughts about that.
Of course, there's the Willie Nelson, roll me up and smoke me when you die. Roll me up and smoke me when I die.
Okay.
Saw it.
There was a really good friend of my son and daughter-in-law who was into agriculture. And he went to school for that, the feed part of beef dairy. And he told his parents that when he died, he wanted his to be cremated and he wanted his ashes to be put in the cow feed. And he wasn't sick or anything, but he went to some type of a meeting and like a seminar type thing or whatever for where he worked, and he had too much to drink, and he got out and he went for a walk and kind of got disoriented or whatever and ended up walking into a lake. It was no winter, walking into a lake because he could see where the hotel was and walking over this lake, and he fell in and he died. And the parents were really, really torn if that's, but he had talked about it a lot of times. And he was engaged. He was a young man. He was in his 20s, early 20s when this happened. And his fiance said, "You have to do it. He's told us all that this is what he wants when he dies, is he wants to be inside the animal. Can't see the intestines and all of that. That was his thing. So I don't know if they ever did it or not. The story never came back. If they did, but yeah, that was, I mean, it was a real tough thing for the parents, first of all, to lose him like that. And then to try to decide. And he had talked about this since he was a teenager, that when he died, that's what he wanted to do. And it's like, so you have to watch what you say.
So you have to mean what you say.
Or mean what you say.
I have a question. I've been to have not been to a couple funerals where someone died because their wish was not to have anything at all.
Right.
And am I wrong in feeling a little bit offended by that? Because you don't have the closure, you know, and am I the only one that feels that way, that, well, sure, this is what they wanted, but
I felt disappointed.
like,
Yeah, I agree.
so, I don't know,
It seems like since COVID, more and more people are saying they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
Change something.
but what about the people left behind, don't they?
Exactly.
That's who the,
Right.
that's who the funerals are for, they say, and
Because you
obviously.
because you missed the visitation part of it, or because there was no celebration of life or anything?
The whole thing, I think the whole thing you miss, you know, when you go to a funeral, you connect with people that were left behind, you connect with people I haven't seen for years, and the older we get, the more that happens. But there's no closure, you know, it's hard to believe that the person passed away because you didn't see it. I
It
mean,
feels kind of selfish that they asked for that, you know, doesn't it?
Yeah.
thank you, that's why I always thought, but I didn't see it.
Yes.
But see, I've seen more celebration of life where they, you know, they were cremated, and I don't know if they had something for the immediate family, but they were cremated, and then they had
Party.
Yeah.
But you're still getting together as a family.
Right.
That's right.
Where
Right.
if they have nothing at all,
Right.
it's kind of,
Yeah. But I've been to a couple of those, and they were really nice,
Yeah.
because
right,
first of all, when you go to a visitation, if you know
one of the family members and you're standing in line and all these other people are, you don't know anybody and it's real slow, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But like this celebration of life, the last one that we went to, was my daughter-in-law's grandma. And I knew the whole family and stuff. And it was just really nice because it was from like 4 o'clock until 8 o'clock at night. And it was really nice because you knew who you wanted to talk to and you just watched when they were available.
Yeah.
And then you moved around and then, you know what I mean? You gave your sympathies and you talked a little bit about different things and it just seemed like it was just I could see, that woman's name was Joy. I could see Joy's expression, just being grateful that her kids weren't standing there.
Yeah.
Crying.
Yeah, I understand that, I was referring to having absolutely nothing.
Oh.
You know,
I think some of it might be a generational thing too, like mostly our generation, maybe a generation before, that was traditional, that you had the visitation and the funeral. Now we're getting away from that, cause like my daughter looks at things different than I do. You know, cause I think I need to have a cemetery plot and a stone so I'm remembered and she's like, I don't care, you know, so I think that's some of it maybe, you know, that some people just don't feel that need compared to, you know, like our generation or generations before us.
I think the cost of a funeral too enters into it sometimes,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
things, spend the money on some cause rather than putting on this big show.
Right.
I like the big show because it gives you an opportunity to meet the people that were important to the person that day, even if you don't know them.
I think it was kind of comforting to have certain rituals that were expected. It was limiting, but as society changes, and especially after COVID, so many things have been changed. It's free, but it's also kind of leaves us not knowing what to do.
Yeah, traditions have a use, you know,
Yes,
well, this is what we always do.
yeah,
You
that's
know.
right.
We always done it that way.
Celeste really scripted her funeral. And she had plenty of time to think about what she wanted, as she was sick for a long time. And she talked about it a lot with me and with my daughters, including some of the grandchildren even. And it turned out very beautiful. I think that I'm glad we did it. An old friend that I went to school with from second grade through junior high showed up. I hadn't seen her since. And, you know, this was the start of a renewed friendship. It was really, really special. And there were other people there that I hadn't seen for a long time. If, you know, it was so special, I would kind of like the same thing for myself. The idea of having nothing, I think, just leaves me cold.
I'm glad you brought up grandchildren. How do you all feel about younger children being exposed to this?
My granddaughter was present shortly before her death. I was there with my daughter, and the granddaughter wasn't there at that point in time. The grandchildren liked her idea of at the funeral passing out bubbles and squirt guns.
I think a lot depends upon the child.
Yeah.
You know, two of my grandkids, someone passed away in my son-in-law's family, and they had the funeral. They didn't take him to the services in church, but then they took him to you know. And my little 4-year-old grandson comes running in the house and says, "Grandma, we were at a funeral. Julie died. She really is dead," you know, but to him it was a big party with all of his little cousins, you know, so, but then the older one was a little more serious about it because he realized what death was. So, you know, I think it depends upon the child, if they can handle it or not. You might have a young adult that doesn't wanna deal with it.
I think a good funeral director too can be so helpful.
Yes.
We went, this was our children, not grandchildren, but it was great grandma's funeral. And, our son asked the director, how'd you get grandma in that box? You know, I mean, they think very physical, you know, and the man answered him very, you know, this is how we got grandma in the box. But I just kinda giggle thinking about that was his.
What about just letting your survivors make the decision?
Right,
Kind of inclined towards that. Well, do whatever you want to,
yeah,
you know?
that's all right.
I've talked to people that do a lot of healthcare and they say put everything in writing because there's gonna be conflict. And if you put it in writing, this is what this is what the person wants,
Yeah.
especially if you have an odd number of children.
Even though
Even
it's
it's worse.
But they suggested, put it in writing what your wishes are, so that this is, you know. And that's hard to do,
Uh-huh.
it's really difficult.
So if you do write your own obituary and your own funeral, do you wanna just keep it to yourself or do you wanna share it? I guess that's a decision to make. Well, try that in the coming week. I have a handout and about today. And next week is our last week, week 6, so please come. And I also have an opportunity, and I have a couple of copies of this in the announcement. There's what they call a day of mindfulness. That's a 4-hour little meditation retreat. I did this the last 2 years. And this is a group of friends from Sheboygan who are doing it. It's on Saturday, November 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at First Congregational Church in Sheboygan. And you bring a bag lunch, and I have the information about it here if you're interested. It's 4 hours of silence. But there are guided meditations, there's some discussion, but basically it's 4 hours of silence. So here's the information regarding that.
I even talk in my sleep.
Here's the handout for this week, and before that, let's just close with a sitting. Just sitting, noticing our body and our breath. Notice the thoughts that pass by. Just sitting with no expectations. Letting whatever comes, come. Thanks for your practice.
I'm gonna go to that Sheboygan retreat. 4 hours is gonna be a long time.
4 hours is a long time to just sit there and quietness.
I want to try it.
But they have some guided meditations.
They
It's worth breaking.
And they're nice people. I've been there before with Michael.
So you've done 4 hours?
No, I've not done 4 hours, but I've been with that group
Oh,
for,
okay.
you know, just a gathering.
Yeah. That would be, yeah.
Who has been to a retreat like that where you were silent for an extended period?
Dave went to.
Dave, what was your experience?
It was great. I remember especially, it was during the winter and they had bird feeders. And so I'd be watching the birds, then what better way to be quiet?
Maybe if you could walk around.
Yeah.
If you did just better schools.
Oh, well, that one wasn't, we were quiet for years.
We were quiet for
So Jim, you are going to
I
this?
am,
Keep in touch.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I think I'd like
It's a nice group.
Rebecca says she's gonna
Yes.
these chairs next week.
So,
Okay.
one of those first
Good.
two classes that we watched on the, we weren't here, but we watched
Okay.
it. And this is gonna be part of a story, most question. Oh, you were talking about mentors?
Oh, she
And you
was
mentioned two nuns,
princess.
their names, and I was like,
Yeah.
those are very familiar sounding names to me. Did you go to St. Clement?
Yes, I did. Did you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
One of the girls from our.
But I was,
What year were you?
well, I
And
probably,
she's in a lot of
before
those
you.
productions.
Oh, my name was Warren, my maiden name,
I
my
think that's a
sisters
lot of
came along behind me.
Okay, I
Already,
recognize
I
the
don't know
name.
for
You
sure.
might have known my mother, Shirley Bride.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
I love those.
She was very
I
good.
know,
Well,
And I love the queen.
Yeah.
See you.
She was good.
Sister Natalia.
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
for sure.
Was she in the first grade?
No, she was a principal. She was 8th grade.
Oh, okay,
And,
right.
But
Yeah, sure.
Sister
Well, she
Peta
was
was
there.
in second grade. I wasn't there for first grade. I was in St. Cyril and Methodius.
What year would I have been there? Well, I was born in 1947, so I was there like 53,
And I was
6.
born in 50.
So you were there when I was there.
Yeah.
A few years ago. Paid any attention to this. Well, that's great. That's interesting. And I have to know
Well,
that I
the
was right
person
about
that
those
came to
names.
Celeste's funeral was Lee Prangy. She was in my class.
Wow.
And
Sure.
we developed a great friendship. And
Cool.
I knew her husband separate from her. So we were, you know, renewed a
Fun.
friendship too. So that was really great.
Yeah, well, my sisters were quite a bit younger than me, like
That's okay.
7 years younger than me. So you were in between us, in
Yeah,
between me and
perhaps,
them. Well, great. Yeah, I certainly remember Sister Natalia.
Oh, boy.